Hey everybody, welcome to Review with Me, your review guide of shows, movies, and everything in between. Be sure to click the like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get on with this review. We are back with another review of Married at First Sight. This is season 18, episode 9. So Madison returns to the apartment. Alan did not show up to the kickball activity that apparently she threw, and Madison had a fit about it, and she expressed that while she was there, and she came home, starting this episode, coming home, letting Alan know that she was pretty disappointed of him not showing up. He then explains his reasoning behind it. So apparently, throughout the night prior, when they went out for his birthday celebration that she threw and the whole surprise, that was a nice gesture. I said that on this episode. But with Madison, apparently she acts single. She behaves and moves about life single, despite having a husband in this instance. So while they were at the bar, she was moving around single, not letting him know where she was going to the bathroom, going to another part in the club, and she's just acting like she's with her girls and not alongside her husband. And he called her out on it, like, okay, it just felt like you was out with them and we weren't really spending time together. Like, it felt like I was an afterthought, basically. And I'm glad he called her out on this. I understand with Madison she says she was single for quite some time. I forget how long, but long enough. I think with Madison and women like her who's been single for longer than they've been in a relationship recently, it's easy to think of self only, right? It's easy to only prioritize self. But I also feel like it's in addition to the fact that she is just not that into Alan. She's not that into Alan. And despite her throwing this nice gesture of a surprise party for Alan, it's just a nice gesture. It's nothing more than that. She wasn't being romantic with him. Like, she wasn't like kissing him like, happy birthday, husband. She wasn't doing anything cute like that. She was like, hey, happy birthday. Like, it's just basically a friend throwing a happy birthday, a birthday party for another friend rather than a wife doing it for her husband. So he felt like, okay, well, if you're going to act single, I'm going to act single. So I'm going to leave at the same time with my other guys, or, I'm going to do my own thing. And it just was just weird. It's a weird dynamic that they're having with each other. And I forget their ages, but considering that they're all adults and for them to behave this way, it's very telling. It's just this whole tit for tat. Madison says that she's been in relationships in which it's been like that, right? A tit for tat. And I just find that to be so interesting. Like, in our life, history always finds a way of repeating itself one way or another. And in this instance, as spontaneous as it is to get married at first sight, she is still seeing patterns of previous relationships where it's a tit for tat situation. And though Alan, I like that he called her out on her behaving in a manner that's very solo oriented. I didn't like that he was trying to rationalize the behavior, right? Like, he was saying, okay, well, because you were doing that, I felt like I had to retaliate. And it just felt like he was trying to explain himself further and not holding her to the fire as she should have been solely in that moment. He should have said, I was upset that you were acting solo and could care less about my presence, and that wasn't okay. Instead, he's saying that, and he's saying it felt like I had to do a whole tit for tat, or no, it felt like I had to retaliate and say, oh, blah, blah, and so of course her response is gonna be, well, that's petty, or I don't like tit for tat. So I think it's just another example of Alan not standing 10 toes down, or not really holding his wife accountable the way she needs to be held accountable. Instead, he's finding a way to make himself look as foolish as she is. Okay, so now we get to Camille and Thomas. I almost forgot their names. Camille and Thomas. Anyway, okay, so Camille and Thomas, they get back from the game as well, and they're talking about how much their body is hurting. Who cares? Anyway, they get to the whole black enough conversation and who's black enough and who's not. Camille is listening to Thomas, who's telling her about him realizing the difference between a black woman's experience in the world in comparison to a black man's experience. And I just don't enough at this point. What are y'all talking about? What are y'all what? Both of y'all are light skinned. Hello? I know we don't want to go there, but both of y'all are light skinned black people. And not even that, biracial light-skinned black people. Let's be very clear, because there are light-skinned black people who are not biracial, at least not directly. Maybe they have like a great-grandfather who was white. But this one is a direct case of one parent is white and one parent is black. Okay? Both of y'all have that shared experience. Why don't y'all connect on that? Why don't y'all just be like, hey, how was it growing up biracial? Man, I had, why don't y'all talk about that? Instead, y'all talking about, oh, well, he just not hood enough for me. She grew up in the suburbs I don't understand, because apparently she did grow up in the suburbs. But despite her growing up in the suburbs, she grew up in black enough spaces. So she feels like her black card, her swag card is more up to date than Thomas is. And I just find that to be so laughable, because y'all look the same. Cut it out, please. Okay, so now we get to Carla and Juan. Juan, here we go. Another episode of How Can I Be More Passive Aggressive? Hi, I'm Juan, and I'm passive aggressive. So he opens up his scene riding his bicycle, his thin ass bicycle, like what's that guy who was found taking steroids and he won like some medals? I forget. Y'all know who I'm talking about, that white guy. Anyway, he's riding his bicycle like he's that guy. Okay, cool. You ride 30 miles every weekend, a whole 2-hour bike ride. Whoop-de-daisy. How's your startup going, Juan? How's your startup going? Put more attention, put 2 hours in on that than bike riding for now. What are we talking about? So he's talking, hyping himself up, and look, I'm obviously joking on him, right? But I still do feel what I'm feeling. I find it to be very passive aggressive, because I'm going to continue to show myself as this so accomplished and right to do type of guy. And boom, he comes home after a 2-hour bike ride, 30 miles, and you see Carla just waking up, wiping boogers out of her eye, breath still stank, and she's drinking some coffee, and she's on the phone. So Juan is doing his little cam, and he's telling the cam, oh, look at her. She takes forever to wake up in the morning, and I started my whole day. She takes forever. She sleeps all morning. So? Look, I understand. Look, it's the weekend. One, it's the weekend. But two, people have to respect other people's lifestyle. I think she works a living that allows her to sleep all day. And though personally I wouldn't find that attractive, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. Even times when I would like to sleep in, my body tells me get up. The latest I've slept in was 9 o'clock on a weekend. It's so hard, and by sleeping in, I mean I have to get up again and then go back to sleep. Type of sleep in. And that's like the latest, maybe 10. That's the latest my body allows myself to sleep in. Functions. I have to get up. I have to sit up. I have a dog. I have to start my day. And I have to feel productive. That's just what makes me me. But for Carla, she's a different type of person. She's a yoga instructor. She probably doesn't have her classes until later. Maybe she's off this weekend. Maybe she's more productive on other days, right? It may look different every day for her or every other weekend for her. So I think this is just another way for Juan to dig at Carla for not looking and being who he wants her to be. And I just find that to be so annoying. And I think with Carla, she kind of snapped at a later part of this episode, and we'll get to that. But I think Carla, she's picking up on that. I feel like she's picking up on it, and she's getting annoyed. And in the moment, she may not show frustration. She may laugh it off and smile. But in other moments later on, maybe she's being a passive aggressive in her own way, but she'll show that, okay, stop playing with me. Like, she'll show her attitude and her annoyance with his behavior. Like, he's always trying to call her out on something. Okay, so now we get with Amem. Amem is hanging out with her girlfriends, and she is giving them the download of what's been going on between her and Ikechi. Her girlfriends are not fans of Ikechi. Absolutely not. I think Chrissy was immediately turned off after the housewarming, rightfully so, because Ikechi showed his ass in his own passive aggressive way. I think this whole season should be called Passive Aggressive Maths USA Season 18. Like, it's so beyond passive aggression. I cannot even understand. Her friends are like, how do you move on from this? He's called you aggressive when in all actuality, you're direct. When you've asked him questions to get to know you better, to get to know him better, he'll give the excuse of it's too late. He goes to sleep at 9. So at what point are we getting to know each other for us to move forward and move closer with each other? Amem is like, I don't know. So they're just having their crab boil. And at this moment right here, I wanted some crab legs. At this moment, I was like, dang, I wish I had some crab legs right now. But yeah, this was an interesting scene. Let's go ahead and continue. Okay, so now we get to Michelle and David. Michelle brings David to her brow place, and apparently she goes here quite frequently, and she's friends with the brow lady. I don't remember her name, so please excuse me. And y'all notice every time she introduces David, she always says David. She never says, this is my husband, David. This is my new husband, David. She doesn't say, this is David. This David right here. This David. Anyway, so I guess the point of this outing is for David to see Michelle in her element and for him to understand and get to know her better while he gets his eyebrows threaded. I don't know what work she actually did, because as I was watching the before and after of the scenes, there was really no difference. Maybe she cleaned him up a bit, but okay. Anyway, he, like he always is, David, just looking all like trying to appear so, how can I be better for you, right? Just kind of thirsty for the approval and validation of Michelle, when really Michelle ain't nobody for you to be feeling the need to be validated from. Like, seriously, Michelle, no offense to Michelle, I think she's a cute girl, but I wish David would pick up those balls. Pick it up. These men, except for Ikechi, maybe no, he needs to pick it up too. Only men on this show in this season that's been showing balls is Rafi. Rafi. Shout out to Amem's cousin, Rafi. Okay? But every other man in this show this season, pick up the balls. Pick up the balls. Anyway, so David's like, oh, tell me what about Michelle do I need to know so I could better appease her? I could better get to know her. I could be better for her. What? Why is it always about Michelle? Why can't Michelle have those questions or come with this selfless mindset when it comes to their marriage? So this brow lady talking about, well, she's the most positive woman I've ever met. And immediately Michelle's like, hold on now. Hold on. Maybe not that. Don't say that part, because that's not true, really. That's not really true. That's not true right here, at least. So that was a little funny moment. Anyway, they're just talking. Nothing's really being substantial shown. Nothing substantial is shown right here in this scene. But yet another example of David being thirsty for the validation of Michelle and wanting to know more about her, while Michelle could give two shits about David. Okay, so now we get back to Camille and Thomas. Camille, I'm already laughing at this scene because Camille, can we talk about he's not black enough? I'm from the hood. I'm this black girl. I need someone to match my swag. And she walks into this rose petal decorated floor, this nice aura of relaxation awaits her, and she walks in. She says, oh boy, are you talking to a 10-year-old? Are you like, Camille, enough. Like, she lacks the appeal that she is seeking from Thomas. So that's why I find the whole swagometer discussion that she constantly has, I find that to be so ironic, because, ma'am, where's yours? Anyway, Thomas sets up this nice little massage area for her, and he just tells her that how much he appreciates her. She goes in the room and she changes into something that he can massage, right? She comes out wearing, like, ma'am, she has on a gym outfit. She has on this long piece gym sports bra and these like knee-high gym shorts. Where's the skin? Where is the skin that he's supposed to massage you on? And look, I'm not saying she has to come out naked and, the cameras blur her private areas apart, but I feel like she could have came out with something a little bit more slinky, something a little bit more revealing, something sexy. I think they're both nerds. I think they're blurs, right? Black nerds. I think they're both nerds, and Camille has a hard time accepting the reality that she is a nerd as well. He and she, they're a great match. And she has to take away this mindset of I'm swagged out, because nowhere, anywhere in her, around her, do I see swag. So Thomas is massaging her, and then he gives these little peck ass kisses. Like he's nervous. Oh my gosh, this nerd. Oh my gosh. So he's like pecking her like a woodpecker. Looking stupid. Anyway, but it's sweet. I feel like it's sweet for him, right? It's sweet for him, and I don't want to knock down his efforts. So shout out to Thomas for trying to up the swagger meter. And it seems that she was receptive instantly. Like, as soon as she walked into the apartment and saw the rose petals on the floor, I think she was instantly impressed. She said that she's never had someone give her a massage before, and I just found that to be interesting because you've dated niggas, right? You've dated these thugged out black men. That's what they do. That's what they do before they do the do. That's what they do before they do you. That's what they do. It starts off with the massage. And if you've ever dated a Jamaican, you definitely got a massage. Definitely. A Jamaican, a Haitian, a hood nigga. Like, you definitely got a massage. What are we talking about? But okay, sure. You've never got that before. Anyway, she was impressed. He was kissing her down. She's like, okay, well, I think it's time for us to, go ahead and see what's going on. What's really going to happen between us? Like, what? And so she gets up. They head to the bedroom, and then boom, they do what it do. Obviously, they don't show that scene, but we learn in a later scene that they quote unquote consummated the marriage. Y'all had sex. Enough. Can y'all spell consummated? I'm sick of this. We've consummated the marriage. Y'all had sex? Okay, got it. Okay, so we get back to Madison and Alan. They open up in this private cam talking about we just came from dinner and the dinner was so nice. And I was little, so what's his name? Alan talking about, I was a little emo the other day. And it's like, Alan, stop. Pick up your balls. Okay, so what? You was being emo. You was being emotional because she was acting like she could care less about you. And I would be emotional too. I would be upset as well. So stop disregarding your rightful response or emotional expression, because in that moment, it was warranted. In that moment, I would understand. And in that moment, you see, what's her name? Madison talking about, she's like laughing. And I just felt like it was like a joke on Alan. Oh, there goes Alan being emo. There goes Alan being tit for tat. No, Madison, you was not showing up for your husband the way he needed to be shown up for. Okay? You was not being there for him. So I don't feel like it's right for us to have Alan be painted as this quote unquote emo guy. No. You was not, like, anyway, moving on. Oh, y'all notice in that scene, Alan has on another SpongeBob attire. I don't know what, maybe SpongeBob was his childhood hero, but he had on a SpongeBob shirt. So I'm trying to understand, did he go out to eat for dinner wearing that pink shirt with a SpongeBob symbol or the image of SpongeBob on it on the side? My goodness. Okay, so we get back to Carla and Juan. Carla and Juan, they're out having lunch, and Carla decides to start off this lunch saying, I want to share more about who I am and my upbringing with you so you could get to know me a little bit more. So he's like, yeah, okay, sounds good, So they're eating, well, he has this plate of, I guess the food was just calling his name because he's chopping them down. He has onion rings. He has a burger. He's dipping the sauce. He's enjoying his meal. While Carla is telling him about how she grew up in a big Mexican family and her parents are immigrants. And though they have a good relationship, I don't know really what she means by good though, because we have yet to see her parents in this season at all. I know I guess her dad was very private about showing himself on TV, but it's like, okay, for what though? Like, what's going on? Why? What are you hiding? Are you afraid? Like, I'm about to say something about I want to sound racist, so let me not say that. But why? Show up for your daughter. Anyway, apparently she realizes throughout her upbringing, her family didn't communicate well with each other. They didn't tell each other when they were mad. They didn't tell each other when they were upset with the other person, and they would just kind of go about their day and not recognize that amongst their communication with each other. And look, I think with Carla, she talks in a way that she just takes forever. She takes forever. And I appreciate that in this moment, I know Juan looks like he's more interested in his food, but I want to give credit where credit is due. Juan here, he's giving her eye contact. He's not cutting her off. And in the meantime, like, he has to do something. Like, I just feel like with me, I would be so restless. I would be so restless because Carla is the type of woman a person who you can't interrupt her. You can't, like, she has to have the mic. And I hate when people are like that. Not to say that I look forward to being interrupted, but it's to say that I don't want to feel like I'm sitting in an audience and you're at the podium. You know, if we're having an intimate moment, I should be able to ask questions or react. And, like, it has to be conversational. I don't know. In my opinion, I feel like, okay, sure, yeah, she's giving some insight on her upbringing, but she just doesn't get to the point. Like, she's taking forever to speak. And she's like, my parents came here at, like, she elongates her words. She's shaking her whole body as she speaks. Like, what are you trying to get to? What are you trying to get to? And she's smiling while she's speaking. She's not even eating her food. Like, she's not really pausing to allow him to connect to. Because it's one thing I want to share more about how I was brought up, but I think this could have been an opportunity for him to also connect with her as well and say, so as she's saying, yeah, my parents came from, came from Mexico and emigrated here when they were young. And though they did their best with me, they weren't the best communicators. And then boom, she could take a bite to eat of her sandwich. In that moment, as she's taking a bite to eat, Juan could be like, I understand what you mean by that. My parents weren't the best communicators either. They will always, talk over me or send me to my room whenever I had an opinion. And then Carla could be like, oh my gosh, I had something similar when I was 13. Yeah, like, it could have been a conversation where we're both adding to it. As for in this moment, it's only Carla that could speak. Only Carla gets the word in. And I get it. She starts off by saying, let me tell you more about myself. But I feel like there's a way to do that and make it conversational. And I think that's what is lacking in this moment. So I have no choice but to give Juan his credit here because he didn't cut her off. I could tell that she'll be annoyed, and she has shown annoyance or whatever whenever he's cut her off before. And I will be eating too. The fuck? I'll be eating too. So yeah, Carla mentioned also that her family didn't demonstrate affection at all throughout her childhood, and she wanted to make a difference within herself on how she shows love to herself and others. So she went to therapy, and that is the reason why she has physical touch being her top ways of showing love. And so she's saying this, and he's just chomping away. Juan is just chomping away like, okay, chomping away. And, in the last episode, she talked about how when she does kiss him, like when they do kiss, which I don't think I've seen, not since the wedding episode, I haven't seen them kiss. So, okay. Many times. Anyway, I guess when they do kiss, Carla said verbatim that it feels like kissing her cousin. I guess they don't kiss on the lips. Maybe they just do like peck kisses, like on the cheek. So there's a lack of affection in their marriage. And Juan keeps saying the reason for that is because he just don't feel it. He just doesn't feel comfortable yet. And I just feel like Juan is not truly invested, nor is he interested in getting invested. And he's stalling time as best as he can to get to the end of this season. I don't think he's going to say yes at the end of this experiment. And I feel like he and Ikechi are the same type of men. Boom. So now we get back to Michelle and David, and finally, we're at an event that is of David's choosing. He is bringing Michelle along with him to meet some of his guy friends, and he's just a cool guy, seemingly. He's very outgoing, and you could tell with his personality, he's the friend who everyone likes to be around. He gets along with any group of people. He makes you feel welcome. I think he has a just like a magnetic presence about himself. Anyway, so you notice when he came in to they're at a bowling alley. Bowling alley, that's what you call a bowling place, and he's like, "This is my wife, Michelle." Every time he is introducing Michelle, he always give the adjective my wife. My wife, Michelle. He doesn't just say, "Oh, this is Michelle. This is Michelle. Oh yeah, Michelle over there." No, he says my wife, Michelle. He gives her the respect to at least present her as this new title that she is in his life. And I feel like Michelle could care less about lending that same respect towards him. So they're getting ready to change into their bowling shoes, and his friends are trying to get to know her a bit more. She tells them that she doesn't really feel the connection with him yet, or period, and there are just some differences, like strong differences between the two of them. Not only does he live with his parents, well, in the basement of his parents' house, but he curses a lot. And she mentions, I guess, when David met Michelle's mom, he cursed a lot. I guess he just like curses very casually. And look, the way that she was saying it, you could see how much of a big deal it was to her and how disrespected she felt. She was like, "I was really hurt by that. I was really hurt by that." I just felt like that's a interesting choice of words. I don't think hurt was the proper way to describe it as, because like you just met this guy, you're not really invested, nor are you trying to be invested. I don't think you were hurt by it. More so embarrassed is the term. And maybe she did say embarrassed in the scene, I just forgot. But nonetheless, she was going in describing his downfalls. Like I can't recall if she mentioned anything about him that she actually appreciates. So David is taking it like a champ. He's standing there above her, and you can see in his face that he is reeling. He is upset, like, "Really, bitch? Really? I'm doing my best for you, and you can't stand a fucking curse." But here's the thing, though. I'm not a big cursor either. I'm really not. And I would rather people around me, especially if you're my significant other and you're meeting my family, I would think you'll know how to behave. And I feel like with David, though I do think he's a genuine guy, I feel like he just doesn't know when to code switch. And I know sometimes, like in our society nowadays, the idea of code switching is now seen as this, "Oh, you're conforming to colonialism, you're letting white supremacy win." No, I'm just not cussing up a storm in front of my parents. You know, I know what I talk about with my girlfriends is not gonna be what I talk about in the presence of my parents or any other elder. Like, there's a difference. You have to code switch. I think it's just a part of being respectful and being mindful and just being a mature adult. Like, be considerate of other people and how not everyone is gonna be accepting to you cursing a lot. Like, that's just not, it is very unattractive. It very much is so. But again, I feel like with David, because he comes across so much so like this, what can I do? What can I do to please you more, to be better for you? Like, he is so fixated on just bettering himself that it feels like you can mold him to what you want him to be. But that's a lot. I feel like that's a lot of work to have to do for any person. Never mind Michelle. Okay, so we get to Alan and Madison. Back to them. And now we're meeting with Dr. Pia. Dr. Pia, I think she's a great addition to the show. I'm glad that they have her on the show now, and she's been really great getting these people together and just calling it straight. Now, her conversation with them centers around what took place at the bar. And, Dr. Pia kind of points out that, y'all going to this bar together but leaving separately, that's not becoming of a married couple. And she also points out how Madison, she has a history of not prioritizing her romantic partner in comparison to her girlfriends. So yeah, she's calling her out on that, which I appreciate. But then Dr. Pia poses her the question, what needs to happen in this marriage for you to feel like you can prioritize Alan? Then Madison says, I need to be complimented more. Girl. And what I don't like about that response is it completely dismisses and ignores the efforts that Alan has put into this marriage thus far. Alan has complimented her. Since they got married, he's complimented her saying, you look beautiful. And in that moment when Madison said that, Alan says, I do, what are you talking about? I do compliment you. And he says, I said you look nice. And Madison has a problem with that. She feels like the adjective nice is not sexy enough. You use nice to compliment your grandma. That's what you use. And look, sometimes with men, they don't have the right adjective sometimes. Sometimes they don't. They just be like, oh, you look nice. And I feel like nice is sufficient in their heads, but to women, that's not the same as what they would prefer. Okay, bet. Fine. I'm sure he could take that in. But I feel like, again, it was another moment of Madison not recognizing her own ways to improve. Instead is, well, if you did this, then I'll do that. If you did this, then I'll do that. How about you just do it? How about you just choose to prioritize him regardless, right? How about you just change your ways and do better? Okay, so Camille and Thomas are now meeting with Dr. Pia. Dr. Pia visits them at their home, which I find to be interesting because all the other couples I've noticed in this episode met with Dr. Pia outside of the home. Well, that's something I just noticed. Anyway, Camille tells her that we consummated the marriage. Whoop-de-doo. That's great. Good news. It helps bridge the gap within their marriage and they're feeling closer with each other. Thomas is sharing how much he's been impressed with Camille and it's going well, right? So Dr. Pia, of course, now asks another question. She asks, so what are the boundaries when it comes to intimacy? And I feel like this question, like, what do you mean? What exact, do you want me to say everything's fine but anal? What do you want me to say? I just didn't know where she was getting at. Like, can you lead me to what you're actually asking of me? Are you asking me verbatim what is off limits when it comes to sex? Is that what you're asking me, Dr. Pia? Like, I just feel like that question was just so vague. And Camille's response was vague as well. She said, well, I'm pretty much as long as there's communication, everything's pretty fine. And Thomas, he doesn't really have a concern. What he gonna say? Actually, I do have some reservations when it comes to anal. Like, I don't know. I just don't know what they wanted or what Dr. Pia wanted them to say in that moment. but it was pretty much of a vague response. Thomas then talks about, well, he gets a little emotional in this session. He starts to choke up and saying how he's afraid of saying the L word. And I had to think for a second, like, what's the L? Oh, like, just say love. What? But he's afraid to do that because he doesn't want to, like, he really takes that seriously. He doesn't want to mess it up and yada. It was just so extra and dramatic for no reason. But, I respect it. And this session was pretty productive, I feel like. It feels like they're progressively moving forward. So that's good to see. Good to see. All right. Let's get to the meat and potatoes here. So we have a mem coming into us on a solo dolo tip. She's in the apartment, in this, it looks like she's in one of the bedrooms. Nonetheless, she's by herself doing a solo cam moment here. And she's telling us about her and Ike, that's what she called him, fitting, and how they went to a dinner the other night, and it was an intense moment between them because after she asked him, so what did you do to prepare for this marriage? Ikechi, he just got loud, and to the point where other people around them were noticing, and it just became very uncomfortable. So much so that Amem said, you know what, let's just go. We gotta go. Let's just go. And she's telling us a story, and she's telling us this and saying how this is unhealthy. She doesn't understand how they came from one point being very happy to be with each other to now, to him getting mad at this question. So, child, I mean, Ikechi or Ike is strange. The thing about him is, like I said from the beginning, he comes off very performative, and I wish they would have caught this moment on camera. I wish there was a body cam on them for this show, because of course, we get that there are probably hours in which they're filming and off hours, but there need to be hooked onto some camera, to some type of body cam, something 24/7, because it's completely, how does Big Brother have a 24/7 film show, but Married at First Sight can't do the same? I don't know. I just feel like they need to have that moving forward. Nonetheless, I think Ikechi, aka Ike, is performative. He had this whole book of letters that he wrote to his future wife, and he performed some of the pages from that book at the wedding, and was this very present and just intentional type of man initially. And you could see how affectionate they were in the beginning to now he can't be bothered. It's like something switch. And it's very alarming, and I think it's very telling to his singleness. I think he has maybe an underlying mental disorder. I really do, because the way that his expression on his face came about in an upcoming scene, let's go ahead and get into that. Okay, so let's get back to Juan and Carla. They're now meeting with Dr. Pia, and they start off by saying, Carla says, it's going, and Juan says, it's good, when they're asked, how's married life going? And they get into, Carla starts off by saying, well, it's just been an adjustment, just talking and having to get to know him, and just, girl, what? What are we talking about? Anyway, Dr. Pia points out, well, Juan hasn't met your parents, right? And she says, no, he hasn't. And she sees it as a big respect factor. She doesn't want to introduce him to her dad, especially until she knows that this marriage is truly a marriage of the future, right? A marriage that's gonna go somewhere. And I feel like both of them know this ain't going anywhere, because I think her lack of concern, her lack of urgency, there's no urgency to say. And it's one thing for her parent to not show up wedding day, but to not have any communication, like there's no like phone call being made, no FaceTime, no nothing of, hey mom and dad, this is my husband Juan, this is my mom, like there was no three-way phone call being made. And I think that's intentional. They're not truly into it. I don't think either of them are invested. And I definitely don't think Juan is invested. So while Carla was saying this, giving her explanation, her bullshit ass explanation, Juan's sitting there looking at her like, squinting his eyes. And I'm looking at that expression like, this nigga don't care. He doesn't care. And Dr. P is trying to be sympathetic, like, that must be hard not being introduced to her parents. Juan don't give a damn. Juan just like, well, I respect it. No pressure. Yeah, no pressure because you're not going to say yes. Yeah, no pressure because this is going nowhere. Yeah, no pressure. So Juan mentions how he doesn't feel the chemistry. He doesn't feel physical attraction towards her. And actually Carla in this moment interrupted him and says, she tries to agree with him, like, if the physical attraction isn't there, then I don't think that needs to be forced. And Juan tries to continue what he was saying earlier. He says, yeah, I just don't feel it. So Carla then says, okay, let me finish. And it was just like, wait, what? And Dr. Pia called her out like, ooh, that was some spice. What was that about? And I think Juan thought Dr. Pia meant that for him. And he immediately says sorry. Like, okay, I guess he doesn't know how to act towards black women, because he was like, ooh, let me shut up. But no, Dr. Pia said, no, I'm talking about Carla. And Carla says in that moment, oh, I didn't even realize. Girl, yes you did. Stop acting like this fairy, lightheaded type of woman that you're trying to present. No, you are feisty. No, you don't have great communication skills. And no, you're passive aggressive just like Juan. Cut it out. You knew saying, let me finish. You knew in that moment was you showing attitude. And I feel like there was no need for her to reiterate what Juan was already saying. I think Carla was just trying to show that she's not hurt by that. Like, okay, cool. I get it. No big deal. I feel like ultimately Carla is offended that he's not all up on her. Carla is offended that he's not finding her attractive and he's saying this so comfortably. She is offended. And I feel like honestly Dr. Pia did not appreciate how Carla was coming across in this moment here. Because in that moment when Carla couldn't articulate what she needed from Juan in this marriage for them to move forward, Dr. Pia's like, well, ma'am, if you don't know, then how she was I think she was getting annoyed with Carla. I do. I think Carla has a way about her that maybe, no, I don't even want to give her the benefit of the doubt. I think she is aware of how she comes across, and she puts on this front of this fairy, lightheaded type of woman, this ditzy gal, when no, you're aware that you're being a little attitudey right now. You are. So anyway, that's them. So now we're back with Camille and Thomas. They're both matching, looking a little, black on denim look with some gold. They enter this jewelry spot, and Camille is the one who's gonna trick on her man. I guess she got it like that. What is she? I think she's a physical therapist, maybe. Nonetheless, she is having him try on some pieces of jewelry because, her goal in life is to up the swagger meter when it comes to Thomas. And you see Thomas here trying on this was it 50 carat chain around his neck. He's trying on some earrings, and he's doing these moves, trying to, like he's this thugga type of guy. And it's a cute moment, honestly. It is a cute moment. They decide on these earrings, and she decides to gift him that. And I think that was a very cute moment. So she gets him these gold earrings, and it looks good. They look good. They look good together, and we'll see. We'll see how this turns out, child. Okay, let's get into it, child. Ikechi and Amem. So now we get to them, in which Dr. Pia is meeting with them, right? Amem is seeing Dr. Pia first. Then Ikechi is meeting them at the spot, okay? Ikechi walks in, and he is immediately not in the mood. As for when Amem walked in, she gave Dr. Pia a big hug, welcomed her with a smile, and they're just on a good accord. Okay, so already in this scene, like I said, he comes in with an attitude. He says he doesn't greet her with a smile. He just walks in like, buenos dias. Like, sir, this is not Spanish 101. Stop it. He says buenos, whatever. And she says, no smile. He says, oh, it's been a long day. Ikechi, Ike, Mr. Orange Hat on your head every time I see you. You, as well as everyone else, has had a long day. You are not this anomaly of a person who works long days. Relax. So he goes around the table. You can see everyone's still and quiet. Everyone is still and quiet. Amem is quiet. She's looking very well put together, and I'm glad that she came in with such a calm demeanor. I think that was a good move on her part, for sure. Like, let him show out to be the asshole and the ridiculous man that he is. So he sits down. He chooses not to sit next to Amem. Dr. Pia calls that out. She says, oh, so you're not sitting next to your wife? And he says, I'm choosing to have a seat. So she immediately clocks his tea and says, okay, what's with the attitude? He then goes on to say, I don't have an attitude. I'm just tired. No, you do have an attitude. Again, passive aggressive. You come in with this passive aggressive ass expression on your face. You barely open your mouth to speak. You barely give a hug. You give this fake ass smile. You don't even greet your wife upon entry. At least say hello to her. You pay her dust. You sit down and you choose to not sit next to her. Instead of saying that and calling it for what it is, you say, I'm choosing to have a seat. No, you're being a passive aggressive. Cut it out. And when Dr. Pia says, okay, I ain't got time for this. Let's cut this shit out. Cut this shit out right now. Cut it out. So Ikechi goes on to give his bullshit reasons why he's annoyed with Amem. He feels like she is too interrogative. She asks too many questions, and he just wants to sit in silence. He just wants you to shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up and suck my dick, right? That's what he wants. Not the suck my dick part, but he just wants her to stop talking. He doesn't like communication. He doesn't like to be asking any questions. And ultimately, when a guy is acting like that, that means, in my opinion, that he doesn't want his truth to be told. He doesn't want his shell to be cracked. He wants to get away with murder. And when you continue to ask me questions to peel the layers away from me, then it's going to be shown that I'm a fraud. And I don't want to be caught. That's what it comes off to me. That's the impression that I'm getting away from this. Because why are you so annoyed? Why are you so upset? We are in the beginning stages of this process. We are married at first sight. We both signed up to do this. This is a part of the process. Why are you upset with me? So he's explained this. He's talking like a little kid. He's just so, why are you so, I just so, why are you so, why do you have to be somebody quiet? I just want to sit and I just want to, can I just enjoy you? Can I just enjoy you? Sir, shut the heck up. So the last straw was when Ikechi says, basically, so when Dr. Pia asked him, what do you think needs to happen here for things to get better between y'all? Because if you're not receptive to her asking you questions, if you're not open to answering those questions, if you're not trying to meet her where she needs to be met, then what do you think needs to be done in order for this to move forward? So in his response, Ikechi says, I don't know. I'm here to be fixed. Sir, again, the passive aggressive. And what happened in that moment? Dr. Pia clocked his T. She's like, okay, all right. Let's both agree. Let's all agree here to not be passive aggressive. You don't need to be fixed. Let's can we agree to that? And I just love that she checked him in that moment. I love that she was like, okay, we're not going to move forward until you get it together. You get your act right. And that's exactly what needed to happen. So he's saying the questions that Amem is asking him in that moment was not the questions that he's referring to as to what he meant. And he's meaning that, she's asking him questions that's pertaining to sex. And the confusion here is, at what point did she, what are you talking about, right? Not to say I don't believe him, because I could envision that happening, right? But I feel like something was cut and pasted at a wrong time, because what Amem is telling us, that she's asking him questions like, what have you prepared? What have you done for yourself to prepare for a marriage, right? How have you grown to be a husband? Stuff like that. And yet Ikechi saying that's not the question that I'm annoyed with. What I'm annoyed with is her asking questions about sex. So I'm under the impression that it's something else that maybe Amem didn't tell us or whatnot. Nonetheless, maybe the questions were, so do you want me? Do you find me attractive? Do you want to have sex? Maybe like direct questions like that. And maybe Amem chose to not share that with us. So maybe there's some fibbing going on here, Amem. Maybe there's some fibbing. But here's the thing with that. So I just find it to be so strange how not one of these men on this show are interested. Not one of them is interested in having sex with their wives. Maybe Alan, but he's too pussy enough to make an advance. But not one of them is interested in seeing. And look, I get it, we're in a day and age in which you want to be careful and you want to respect the woman, yada, 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 yada. But what are we doing? Anyway, so Ikechi goes into detail. First, he's a little hesitant to share with us that the questions that he's asked is pertaining to sex. He then gets permission from Amem in that moment to go on and say whatever it is. He gets into the details about that, and he feels that she is aggressive sexually, and that he says verbatim, he feels like he's a piece of meat. And look, I don't want to laugh, but I am laughing because, again, what is happening to the men in America? We have emasculated our men so much so that they are saying, I feel like a piece of meat. Whatever happened to men wanting to be meat, right? Whatever happened? I feel like you find those men few and in between. And when you do find those men, they're immediately painted as toxic masculinity. all this BS. Like, no, he's being a man with a dick. With a dick that works. He wants to put it inside you with consent, of course. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. So he gets into that. It becomes a very tense moment because the impression here is she is being sexually coercive, and that's not that. I don't think that's been a storyline in MAF's history. So that's very uncomfortable. Dr. Pia even said that these are strong allegations. Like, these key words, allegations. I don't know. It's just I feel like she should have checked out right in that moment, because first of all, what you're not going to do is paint me out to be this sexual aggressor. You're not going to paint me out to be this predator, because what Amem did in that moment too, she defended herself, and I appreciated that, because she said she's getting mixed messages. But here's the thing. Sometimes predators do say that. Right? I'm talking about male predators in particular. I mean, I'm sure female predators too, but there's been certain situations in which I've read about or seen in person in which the predator will say, well, she was wearing that short skirt around me. She was basically calling for me to grab her up her skirt, right? Okay, this part of the review is getting a little too raunchy, huh? But that is where this episode has gone. So anyway, Amem is telling us because Ikechi initially showed her interest, she said herself that he grabbed her hand and put it where his crotch is. In the beginning of their marriage, I mean, they're still in the beginning of their marriage, but in the few days that they were together, the first 2 days that they were together, Ikechi was sexually aggressive in that manner. And it seemed like they were both on one accord. So she wasn't coming across with this, he's being too aggressive and I feel violated type of thing. So because Amem is maybe meeting him where he was and he's no longer there anymore, it comes across aggressive, but it is confusing in Amem's perspective, and I can see how that's confusing. And what Ikechi does here, he says a lot of, well, I'm from the South. I'm from the South, and I'm not used to women from the South being as aggressive, if at all, like Amem is. And I do find that to be a thing geographically, right? There are a lot of Southern values or just cultural differences between men and women dynamic wise that is different in comparison to women up north or women in the Midwest. I am more of an aggressive woman, so I feel like Ikechi will say the same thing for me, right? I probably would have been locked up. But here's the thing. Anyway, the point is, sure, he's a man and he's a human being, and if no means no, regardless of gender, no means no. But I do find this to be alarming because he's hot and cold. He's performative. He likes to present this aura of I'm so present and I'm this amazing husband and I've been praying for my wife and now I have her. She's everything I could have wanted, but then he'll check out. Honestly, I think there's a mental disorder underlying with Ikechi and it's just undiagnosed. I really do. I'm not a clinician or anything like that, but there's some signs that I find to be concerning. Okay, so we get back to Michelle. Michelle is actually having a sit down with Dr. Pia solo dolo. And she's expressing her concern regarding being married to David. She feels like marrying him or being married to him is a form of regression, which is such a slap in the face. Oh, Lord, David, I'm surprised. Not even surprised. I just want to give him kudos. Kudos for being very upstanding throughout this season thus far. I don't know if he's going to switch up. And I haven't been watching the after show, But man, I'm sure when he's watching this, watching it back, he's probably like, this fucking bitch. Imagine someone's with you and they say to someone else, being with him feels like a downgrade. Being with you feels like a downgrade. Being with you feels like I'm failing in life. Girl, bye. If you don't get the fuck out of my, I would have been. Look at me cussing. I'm talking about I don't like cussing, and Michelle don't like cussing, but I'm over here cussing. But yeah, that's how she makes me feel. That's how she makes me feel. Anyway, Dr. P is trying to enlighten Michelle, trying to make her see how, everyone got to start from somewhere. And for you, just like you say, you started from humble beginnings and you worked your way up to where you are now. Maybe you could be that person for David. David is clearly someone who wants to do better and be better and learn more things. Like, he seems to be very open to different things. Yes, he's been living his life a certain way for quite some time because that, of course, is comfortable. When people do things what's comfortable for so long. So I don't want to knock him on that. But again, with Michelle, I feel like, sure, I think it's fair for her to say, I don't want to be that for someone else, right? Just because someone else may have introduced me to the life that I have now and I've worked my way up towards where I am and I'm very proud of myself. I don't want to do that work for someone else. I just want someone else to I just want my future husband to already be there. That's what it seems like Michelle is on. She wants her husband to already be where she is, if not greater, rather than being the one to introduce him and shape him up and build a man, build a bear type ass. Dr. Pia is telling Michelle there are other ways David could provide for you. You're thinking solely financially. And mind you, when she was saying this, I was thinking like, wait, hold on. But I understood what she meant once she broke it down because, yes, provision is done in so many ways. Yes, when we think of provision, instantly, we only think of finances, right? And that's understandable. But there's security, there's safety, there's emotional stability. There's so many things in which a man could provide you with that is more than just finances. And I think definitely with David, I could see him being someone who is a provider in emotional and stable ways when it comes to that. And I definitely want to give him credit for that. All right, we get into Madison and Alan. They're back together again in the apartment, and they're playing this game of Twister. First of all, this is the smallest Twister paper ever. I think this is on purpose, though, so that they could be all up on each other, but this is typically not as small as we're seeing it now. They're drinking some wine. And as they're playing, they get to a point in the game in which they have to reveal, or at least for Madison, she's going to reveal something naughty in his ear. And she reveals to him that she's not wearing any panties. Wookie, wookie. And it was a cute moment. They were laughing and getting close, and I still have yet to see them kiss, though, so we'll see how that turns out. I think the alcohol was definitely running through her, and I think that made her feel more loose. And generally, I do see her to be more open as far as her body is, like, her body language is more receptive to Alan. She's smiling more. She's not as tense, if at all, in comparison to Michelle and how tense Michelle is to David. So I do appreciate that with Madison. But, I mean, we'll see, child. I think Alan, being the nice guy that he is, it does kind of bite him in the ass because he's not the aggressor that she would appreciate. I think she needs her man to kind of hold her and make that first move and get up on her, rough her up a little bit. Rough her up. And there was a moment when they finished the game And he's like, man, I would have loved to have maybe see what was under her pants, right? Or under her shorts. And would that have been okay with you? She's like, yeah, you should have did it. Like, I feel like he always needs permission. And that's because we have emasculated our men. Hello, call me pygmy, but we have made our men, a lot of them, not all, because there's a lot of good men out here, who know how to be men, but there's a lot of men who don't. So, and that a lot of men is overweighing the men who stand in their masculinity. But anyway, there's a lot of men out here who feel very uncomfortable being a man, very uncomfortable being aggressive or being just strong in their masculinity, and it shows. It definitely shows. And I think in this moment, had Alan picked up his balls and been like, okay, let me see how that ass looking. Then they probably would have went to Pound Town, in my opinion. So we get to Carla and Juan, and he's whipping up some quick chicken and some chicken thighs. Looks like some chicken thighs with some veggies. It looked good. But me, the type of woman I am, where's the rice? Where's the rice? All I saw was vegetables and chicken thighs. Where's the rice? Anyway, on his plate, I noticed there was some lettuce, maybe some arugula. Nonetheless, it looked good. It looked good though. It looked good. He's asking her some more questions about herself, how she was raised, what got you into cosmetology, when you start doing hair, just seemingly interested in who she is and her interests in life. And that was a nice moment. Carla expressed how she didn't really try in school. She knew she wanted to do hair, and that was her focus from that point moving forward. And she built her clientele. She has her own LLC, and she is this just aspiring entrepreneur. She's still working towards that, and that's her goal. And you see here, Juan is about to tell her some advice on, it's not easy being an entrepreneur. It's really not easy. And though I feel like, let me give her the benefit of the doubt, he's probably just giving her some help here, right? In that moment, just like, look, don't think this is going to be a walk in the park. And sure, we get that. But I think sometimes, though, when it comes to people and their entrepreneurial desires, a lot of times the recipient in that conversation tend to knock you down. And it's like, can you not? Like, how about you say things like, yeah, it's gonna be a ride, but you could do it, or let me know if you need some tips. I don't know. I feel like there's a way to go about it that is not discouraging. And I notice a lot of times when people like to share any ideas that may not be of the norm or of the straight and narrow path, then they're immediately hit with, it's gonna be hard. Like, they immediately hit you with the negatives. And I just find that to be so annoying. Like, sir, you're an entrepreneur yourself. You said you got 2 startups. So I'm not saying that's an easy thing, but why don't you immediately hit me with some encouragement? Because you, like you're saying, you know how hard it is. So why are you so quick to tell me how hard it is? Tell me how well I could navigate it. Tell me some pointers that you would have appreciated with how you started your 2 startups. Speak life onto me, not death. So we get to Ikechi visiting Amem at her workplace. And it's a cute little moment because he gets to see her in action. Again, his energy is super low, he doesn't have an attitude or have some passive aggression in this moment, but his attitude, well, his energy is just super low. And I'm gonna keep on repeating it. I think something's going on underneath it all that he may not be aware of, or maybe he's not disclosing it to us. But I think something's there. And I also just feel like it is also a matter of him being an introvert. I think he's introverted in a lot of areas. I feel like he is more calm and just boring. I guess not to say introverts are boring, but they need time to refuel after being in a people serving position. And him working in education, working with kids, I could see how that's very exhausting for someone with his energy. Nonetheless, he is giving her some insight again on what he needs from her moving forward. He also expresses that how he didn't mean to embarrass her. That wasn't his intent. He says that he just needs for them to be in nothingness. I just need you to not say anything. Shut the fuck up. He likes to go outside and go on a road trip. He likes to paint and draw, and he just likes to be quiet. And honestly, just from that alone, amongst all other things, he needs a woman who he could be quiet with. That's it. I really do think it's that. Let's wrap it up here with David and Michelle. Dr. Pia visits them together. Dr. Pia presents each of them with a video of what they initially said about the type of spouse they wanted from this process, and from the way that they talked about this mystery spouse, they pretty much described each other pretty well. And Michelle didn't want to accept that and receive that. She noticed that Dr. Pia was really on her A game here with her counseling, and it's a rude awakening for her. She expresses in that moment that basically the way that David describes her lifestyle, he dismisses it in a way that makes her feel like she didn't improve in her life, and it upsets her. David clarifies that wasn't his intent, and no, he is really proud of how far she's come, and yada yada yada. Yo, we'll see how this turns out. I can't wait for the next episode. We're going to wrap it up here. Let me know what y'all think about these couples. How do you feel about Ikechi and his passive aggressiveness? How do you think Alan should be towards Madison? Should he just go ahead and pick up his balls? Is Michelle being unruly, or is she being warranted in her actions? I can't wait to see the next episode. I know we gotta wait 3 whole weeks. My God! But let me know what y'all think. Go ahead and share it in the comments, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.